So the first house I ever sold was in April of 1986, and it was on Chelsea Chase. I sold it to a Baptist minister and his family, and I'll never forget that. It was like it happened yesterday. At the time, our company used to handle a lot of new construction, and we did what was called unmanned open houses, where we'd go by in the mornings and we'd unlock the doors to the houses, and we'd have an open house sign in the front yard, and then we'd go inside on the kitchen countertop and we'd put business cards. And then, people would just drive through the neighborhoods and the door was unlocked and they'd go inside and look. And then what I would do is in the afternoons and on the weekends, I would drive by all of these houses and I would wait until I saw a car. And if there was a car in front, I know there's somebody inside. I go inside and talk to them and sell them that house or sell them a different house. And so anyway, this was a Saturday morning, and I just happened to be driving through. The neighborhood was called Kings Creek. And I was driving through and I saw their car. And Marn Trumley's house was on the left and Benny Brown's house was on the right. And they were inside Marn Trumley's house. And the fun thing about it was Marn Trumley and Benny Brown, they were best friends, but they were also competitors. I mean, they would practically take a loss on the sale of their house to take a sale from the other one. I mean, they were just very competitive in that way. But anyway, I went inside and I met the Hunters, and very, very nice people. And ultimately, got to talking with them and determined that they liked that house. And so we got a contract put together. And through all the negotiations, back and forth, Marn Trumley was the nicest guy, but I'm telling you, he was a tough negotiator too. I didn't know any different. I wound up letting him negotiate my commission down. And I remember on that sale, I made $1,250. But here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. I had just left a job as a waiter in a restaurant called the 50-Yard Line. And back then, I mean, I was working my butt off. Every shift, I would find out who was on the schedule to close that night. And I would ask them if they wanted me to take that shift to close, because I knew that if I closed the restaurant, then there's always one or two other customers that would come in and I'd make a few more in tips. And I mean, I was just a hard worker. I've always been a really hard worker. And I would make like $1,200 in hourly wage and tips on a really good month at the 50-Yard Line. So to make $1,250 off of one sale of one house, I mean, that seemed like a lot of money to me. That's a whole month's worth of income off of one sale. And they were just the nicest folks, and we got the deal put together. And then from that point, Marn Trumley, Benny Brown, and a lot of the other builders saw how aggressive I was. And there was another guy that worked for another company, and I won't give his name, but let's just say he grew to not like me because I flat out hustled him, outworked him. He just wanted to just sit there and do nothing except smoke. He was a smoker. He just wanted to sit there and smoke and sit in his car. And man, I was going up and down the streets. If I saw somebody at a house, maybe they pulled up and stopped in front of a house, I wouldn't wait to do a 3-point turn and go back to that house. I would just simply if they were behind me, I'd put the car in reverse and I'd be going down the street backwards. And I mean, all these builders and these different realtors, they would talk about me. Heck, I didn't care. I was young. I was hungry. I didn't have a reputation. I didn't have anything. So I had nothing to protect. All I knew was I needed to make money. I didn't grow up having any money. And I knew that I needed to make money, and the way to do it was to hustle. And I'll tell you, one thing I was always good at was sales. I could sell. And I think the reason I was probably really good at it is because, again, I grew up not having any money, nothing. So I didn't have a reputation. I wasn't worried about what people thought about me because I was just the poor kid. Had the old worn out shoes and the pants that were too short coming halfway up my ankles because that's all that we could afford. What's interesting is once you start to get a reputation and you start to make some money and people start to talk about you and think, hey, this kid's got it going on. All of a sudden you feel like, oh, now I've got something to protect. Man, when you can learn to set your ego aside and not care about what other people think, just get out there and hustle. Don't be afraid to be told no. Lord knows I wasn't. I literally would put my car across the street where people couldn't leave the neighborhood. It was probably against the law, but I would put my car across the street where they had to stop so they could not get away. And then I would walk up to their door and do this to get them to roll their window down. And I would find out why they were there, what they were looking for. And listen, I knew all of the inventory. So if they told me what they were looking for and that house they were in wasn't it, I could take them to the right house because it may have been in a different neighborhood, built by a different builder. I knew all of the inventory and I could take them right to it. I sold 45 houses my first year and I was 20 years old. I turned 20 in March, got my license in April. I sold 45 houses that first year just using that technique. So that was my first sale, the Hunters on Chelsea Chase.